Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. We got some great stuff to get through today. I'm super excited to talk about it. We're going into the future of sales here, and if you want to be at the top of the game with the evolving world of sales, then you're going to want to be here throughout this conversation. We got three thought leaders in the space that I'm really excited to hear from. And dive deeper into this conversation. So super excited to have these three here with us today. And thank you all so much for joining us. This is fantastic. We are ready to rock. So again, what we're speaking about today is the insights from Gartner. Okay, that's the preface there. But digital selling secrets your buyers want you to hear. Okay, what's the customer journey going to look like in the next 5 years, and how we're going to have to adapt to that process is kind of what we're diving into today. Okay, so to start it off, I want to introduce our fantastic panel. Daniel, Tibor, Mukesh, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today. So welcome. Thank you.
You.
Great. So what I also like to do before we move into everything is just get a bit more background on you guys and yourself. So first off, I'm going to start off with Mukesh. Mukesh, if you don't mind, just giving us a bit of background on yourself, so we can get everyone a bit more acquainted with you, who you are, what you're all about. That would be fantastic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was waiting for you to go to me, Mikey, so I could say hello to everybody from Philippines to Belgium to Milano to Nigeria. I wish I was in all those fantastic places. Unfortunately, I am in a small little condominium in San Francisco, and so this has been life for the last couple of years, as you can imagine. But it is so good to be here. Thank you for having me, Mikey. I like to think of myself as a sneakerhead and as a fashionista, but what pays the bills is Freshworks, and where I spend time as vice president of our global solution engineering team. So think of solution engineering as the same as sales engineering, sales consulting. These are all titles. We're the folks that help you understand technology. We do the discoveries and the demos. I'm sure there's a lot of sales professionals on the call, so you know exactly what my team and I do. But I've been with Freshworks for about 4 years, and I've spent a bunch of time in a variety of different organizations that sell enterprise software, that create enterprise software. So it is good to be here, and it's such a privilege to be speaking alongside Daniel and Tibor. I know they're incredible thought leaders in the space, so just really excited for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, Mukesh, thank you so much for being here. Very excited to hear what you have to say, because I know you know this stuff very well. So really excited. Thank you for being here. I'll throw it over to Tibor. Tibor, can you please just give us a bit of background on yourself, so we can get a bit more acquainted?
Sure. So my name's Tibor Shanto, and you can guess which part of Renbor came from my name. The other part is my wife, Renee. I've been in sales, I think, since the Stone Age, but for the last 17 years, I've been with Renbor, and the focus is working exclusively with B2B companies, and specifically on the front end of the cycle. So from zero to about proposal. Hence the title of Chief Prospecting Officer, sort of a tongue-in-cheek as to the fact that most companies don't put a lot of emphasis on prospecting. They assume that it's there, and I've never seen a prospecting manager or a prospecting VP. So I thought I would be the first and do that. But again, the focus goes beyond prospecting through discovery and to proposal. Once you submit the proposal, you should get a different consultant, because I'm not your guy after that.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for being here, Tibor. I really appreciate it. I know you've got some great insights on that part of the process, and especially as we move forward, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say as this process starts to evolve. Last but not least, Daniel, Disney, thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We love having you on these events. So thank you for being here. Just give us a bit of background for those who don't know who you are, so we can get a bit more acquainted.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, Mikey, thank you for having me again, and to everyone who's here watching this, it's great to be back. My name is Daniel Disney. No relation to Walt Disney for anyone who was going to ask in the Q&A section. I'm a LinkedIn trainer, speaker, and author, so I sit very heavily in the social selling space, which has a strong relationship with the digital selling space. So I'm excited to talk about that in some depth today. I come from a traditional sales background for half of my sales career, and then half of it was in a more sort of digital sales. So I kind of seen both sides of the fence, and really excited to explore what this report sort of has turned up and what the future of sales is looking like. But really excited to be here. It's going to be a good session.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel. Super excited to have you and get your insights here. This is going to be great. I'm excited. Awesome. Okay. Now that we're all acquainted with each other, let's dive into it. The fun stuff. Why we're all here. Okay. So just give me a sec here. Okay. So what we're speaking about is the future of digital selling. Okay. So throughout the report, what we looked at was the current state of selling and what the future state is going to look like. So right now, the current state, where people work has changed drastically over the last couple of years, and will continue to keep changing. A growing number of customers prefer a rep-free buying journey, and then the lack of customer context or interactions is growing as well, since there's so many touch points with one customer. Keeping that all consolidated into one specific space that's at your fingertips for the sales rep is very challenging. And I'm sure all the sales reps on this call has had that experience where you hop onto a call and maybe that customer's already had a interaction with XYZ, and you're just saying stuff that doesn't really need to be addressed. Okay, so that is the current state, and especially with where people work. Do we go back to how we did it before? Do we not? What that looks like? Mukesh, what are your thoughts on the current state of digital selling right now, and kind of what your teams are kind of going through?
Well, I'm speaking on mute, so that's one thing in the digital age that we've all done so many times over the last 2 years, since we've spoken on mute. Well, before I respond to that, I just want to wish all the women on this call a very happy International Women's Day. We missed that. I missed that in the introduction. So, ladies, thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being here. And Mikey, I'll say this. There were a lot of assumptions we make about selling that I think the last 2.5 years have proven that maybe those assumptions were not all accurate. And I kind of want to take you back a little bit. Let's go back 15 years. I had 16 years. I had first taken my sales job, and my manager at the time told me, "You're an enterprise SE. You're gonna be on the road 80% of the time." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Whoa, that's awesome! Think about all the miles. United Airlines, here I come, right?" And so, that transitioned into, hey, let's do a combination of online and in-person meetings. And then it turned into this discussion around, hey, what is the deal threshold that we need to be thinking about in order to be on site? And I know I'm talking about on-site, Mikey, which is not really what you're talking about, right? But I'm just giving you an example of how we've gone from this paradigm of let's be in front of our customers to let's help our customers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very interesting shift. We're all experiencing it. And so for the audience that we have today, if I could oversimplify, I will say that there's 3 types of buying cycles. One is where you're selling as a seller, right? You're in front of your customers, you're selling actively. The other extreme is where your customer is deciding what they want to buy. They're going through a completely online experience, and it is a rep-free experience, right? So those are 2 extremes. There's sort of this happy medium that sits in between, which I'm starting to call as assisted buying. where we are actually, our customers are making decisions on what they want, and then we're helping them either validate those decisions or we're helping them make better decisions. But I think there is no doubt in my mind, Mikey, that today our customers are more empowered than ever before. Today, there's more information on our websites. We are enterprise sellers, right? And there's more information on our websites than ever before, ever before. And in fact, I will go as to say that there are certain industry leaders that have made it. And if we're going to talk about B2B software selling, Mikey, there's some industry leaders who made it so easy to trial software, to try out this product and see how it looks. And here's your 21-day free trial, right? And so, like, how do we empower our customers to make good choices for themselves while helping them buy the right software? So I think it's a little bit of a balancing act. And but there's no doubt in my mind, Mikey, that customers are empowered, customers know what they want, and our role is to help them validate those decisions.
Agreed. No, I love that. I love that take. Daniel, Tibor, do you guys have any thoughts on the current state and how we get to the future state per se?
I think that when I read that they want a rep-free experience, what I read is they want an experience that's free of Herb Tarlick, if you know who I mean. That kind of salesperson in the traditional salesperson. But I think what they're looking for is more insight that they could use. As Mukesh said, how do we help them make decisions? So yes, I think if we change it from rep-free to how do they consume information, how do they then interact with the right people to make sense of that information, to make it contextual to them as opposed to general as it has been. So I think that the right salespeople, and I call them subject matter experts, will continue to influence and drive elements of the decision. But that doesn't mean FaceTime. There's ways of doing that and helping the customer and giving them different suggestions, different options without having that FaceTime. So I think the FaceTime going away is not the worst thing, as long as you make up for it with other tools and other types of interactions that continue to drive the experience. And then more importantly, once they become a customer, how do you extend that experience that they bought based on?
I think Tibor, you make a really good point. That rep-free bit is a little bit of a misdirection. People don't want to be sold to, but I don't think there'll ever be a point where they'll be able to access everything they need without some form of assistance, especially with sort of high level, high value B2B complex products and services. There is definitely always going to be a place for salespeople, but you're right, the standard that those salespeople have to meet, there's going to be a lot less of this pressured selling and sort of stereotype of a salesperson that we're used to. The standards have changed, the technologies have changed, the tools, the platforms have changed, and salespeople, sales teams need to adapt to that. So not so much rep-free, but we do need to show up and be better as sales professionals, and we need to be using all the tools and technologies that we can.
I think we need to be a conduit to best practices, right? Like I see a lot of VPs of sales, they only see their organization. So I have an opportunity to educate them digitally, directly, and through other means, social media for me as an example. So I think, again, it's a question of how much value do they associate with the information. And if every time you interact with them, you're adding value, there's a will to interact with you more. So I think it's going to be, I think you phrased it well, it's that level of salesperson. They'll buy a Big Mac from anyone, but software is a bit different, right?
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's great. And, I think that's what, looking over at the future state, right, where the things such as digital sales rooms will emerge and, help with that whole process. And then, the integrated digital commerce piece for the whole piece where a customer might not have actually ever interact with a rep, essentially, right? And then finally having everything under one umbrella to give context to that customer, what they're trying to do and so on is, what the report kind of came out to be the future state of sales. Okay. We will dive into the future state in a more detail kind of moving through. So I'm going to move on, but we'll we'll get through some of that good stuff in the next little bit here. Okay, so we're going to move on to the first key insight of the report, which I think is pretty cool, right? But in the next 3 years or so, 80% of B2B sales interactions will occur in digital channels. Like I was mentioning on the pre-call, that the majority of my career in sales has 100% been through digital channels. I only had a handful of years where I was actually doing face-to-face stuff. So it's kind of what I see happened, right? I prefer it. So Mukesh, I would love your insights or your thoughts on kind of on that kind of key point there.
Yeah, I love this. I think this is absolutely going to happen. I believe that this is the direction we're heading in. And I think the thing I want to call out is that this says 80% of sales interactions. It doesn't say sales transactions. And I think this is an important distinction to make. And I love one thing that Tibor said. He said there is maybe he used different words, but he said there was a kind of way that we were used to selling, right? And let's examine that way that we were used to. What did we tell our B2B sellers? We told our B2B sellers, do discovery, right? Go understand your customers. Go ask them about their business requirements. Then you create a solution based on what you've understood from your customers, right? And so the paradigm that we are moving towards is, do you really have to ask a question to understand your customer better? Or is there a digital footprint as part of the customer journey that actually informs you what they're looking for, right? A lot of businesses will do a lot of research upfront. They will buy research from organizations like Gartner. They will look at so many company websites. They look at G2 Crowd for reviews. They look at Gartner peer reviews, right? There's a lot of information that's out there. And then by the time they come to you and by the time they engage with you, they've already kind of formulated a point of view about your service, about your software, about your product, right? And so the question that good salespeople should be asking themselves is not, how do I do effective discovery? It should be, how do I find out the perception that already exists about me? How do I find out the research that my prospect has already done about me? And so that's where this idea of a customer journey is so powerful, right? On your previous slide, you had these words, contextual customer journey. So if somebody can tell me, for example, Freshworks is in the business of selling software. If I can find out what are all the things that my prospects have looked at before they engage with me, that's a gold mine. That's what I should really, really care about. Then my discovery process actually becomes much shorter, doesn't it? Because I already understand quite a bit. It speeds up sales cycles. It actually creates more efficiency because you're not boring your customers with questions that they've already kind of researched. And so they're less frustrated. So I think it becomes this virtuous cycle when you can understand the digital footprint, the online sales interactions that have happened already. So I'd love to hear what Tibor and Daniel have to say about this, but that's how I'm thinking about this problem.
So I think that applies to a small segment of the market that's ready to interact. They've discovered that they have a requirement. Maybe they had a big contract, so it's not always a pain, but maybe it's a positive thing. But I would argue that 70% of the market is on the sideline. So they're not doing this sort of searching and learning and all that. They're doing their business. So that's the market that I play in, right? The buyers will come to me and they'll find me. I want to go and find the customers who are going to be ready to deal with me in a year so I could build that relationship. So when I work with customers, discovery is not about us. It's not about discovering. I know what I have. I know what I can deliver. Discovery is about helping the customer discover things about themselves that they weren't aware of. Again, as a conduit of best practices, I can introduce, a wealth of different questions about different areas of the business. So I look at discovery as helping the customer discover stuff about themselves. And that lends itself purely to digital interactions. But the interactions are still driven by either myself, the salesperson, or the organization as a whole, which is, I think, the way it should be. So I think, the other, which is a footnote that came up in the pre-call that I'll end on, is I remember everybody at conferences. I remember at the Aptus conference, this guy from Forrester got up, and it was around 2015 or so, and made this big prediction that by 2020, a quarter of the B2B population will disappear because of digital and technical things. And if you look at 2020, almost everybody that was in software on LinkedIn had a thing, we're hiring, we're hiring, we're hiring. So not only did they not disappear, but they seem to have multiplied. So I'd like to save this slide and come back in 4.5 years.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with both parts. I think Mukesh is right in that there are a lot of customers that will be empowered with the information. They're going to be able to access it. And I think that number will grow. It will become easier and easier. And so more prospects will start to source that themselves. But I think Tibor's right that right now, currently, probably is sort of tilting the other way, where the majority of prospects do need that help and guidance. They don't have all the answers. They might be able to find the information. They might have the answers there, but they don't know what questions they need to ask. And that's where sales is still extremely relevant. But it's changing, it's changed, and it will continue to change. And we're in this very unique transition period, which is why it's super crucial with even sort of statistics and insights like this, however true or false. The moral of the story has to be that salespeople just need to be ready to adapt. They need to be ready to adapt now to how customers are using digital platforms, and they need to be ready to continue adapting as things like this will continue to change.
Yeah. No, I think that's all. I think those are all great insights. And I really like, Mukesh, what you mentioned around the perception of the customer and like getting an understanding of that, because I think that is, such insightful information for the salesperson. If you have that, plus you actually can help them with those burning questions like Tibor and Daniel were mentioning, then you're kind of unstoppable, right? So I totally understand that. It's like right now we kind of still need to utilize both sides of the picture, but moving forward, as more technology comes out, more pieces are added to the process of researching out potential products, I think the digital aspect is going to have a massive play in that, and then potentially could lessen the actual interaction of the salesperson. But these are just predictions, right? But it is very interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I love what Tibor said. And look, I think I love the ideas that we are talking about, right? Because this is one thing, because of how broad B2B selling is, there is no one size fits all, right? And even in B2B, you've got your small and medium businesses, and you've got your mid-market organization, and you've got your large enterprises, and everybody has a unique way of purchasing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I love what Tibor said when he said, hey, discovery is not about us, it's about the customer. And if I may extend that idea a little bit, I think selling is also about the customer, right? It's important for us to understand, how do our customers expect to be sold to, right? We are guiding them. We are in the business of guiding them in the right direction, but they have a way that they like to drive the conversations. So, we made a comment about the old-fashioned way of selling, which was, hey, let me follow my process because that's the process I know, right? And I think I think that's quickly changing, right? I don't think customers have patience for our process. What customers are saying is, tell me what I need to make good decisions, right? So I love this. I think there's little nuggets here that are so valuable that I'm going to be deeply thinking about much after this call. So I think it's a good discussion.
Awesome. Okay, great. Love it. We got a bunch of content to still get through, so we're going to move on. But I'm going to start off with a poll here. So for everybody in the audience, just to get a better understanding of, what does the future of work look like in your sales organization? Are you guys going back? Oh, pardon me. Are you guys going back to, just give me 1 second. back to work from the office? Are you going to stay from home? Are you going to do a hybrid? Are you going back to what it was before everything happened? So I'm just going to launch this guy here for you, and then let me know your thoughts. We'll give it a couple minutes here just to kind of, or just about 30 seconds or so, sorry, to get some insights, and then I'll share and get the thoughts from everybody here. What do you think, Mukesh? Are you and your team's going to be going back to office, work from home, hybrid?
I'll speak for myself first.
Yeah.
Because that question I can answer conclusively for myself. I am definitely leaning towards hybrid. I miss the office. I miss the camaraderie, and I miss the people I work with. So I'm actually, right after this panel, I'm going to jump in my car and drive to work.
Cool.
So I'm doing hybrid personally. And I think there's a lot of benefit, especially in sales. For my teams, it is absolutely up to them. They choose what they want to do. There will be many that will choose to continue to work from home, and that's absolutely fine. Our teams are just as productive as they were in the office back in the day when we were in the office. And some will say, look, I want to come back into the office a little bit. I suspect we're not going to be working from the office 5 times a week anymore. I think that's not going to happen. But I think a happy medium is probably where we're going to land.
Got it. Cool. Okay, I'm going to share the results here with everybody. So you can see we have, I'll just bring it over here. It's kind of a mix across the whole board, but hybrid is definitely taking the lead. I would agree, if I had the option to go hybrid, I think it would be great, but I am fully remote. So I will be in the work from home sphere. But Daniel and Tibor, what are your guys' thoughts on those results? Do you think that kind of adds up with what some of the teams that you've spoken with and interacted with, kind of what that's looking like?
I think I've found the majority being hybrid based. I mean, I have a rented office space and I do some work from home, so I'm sort of hybrid, even though it's just me. But a lot of the companies I work with does seem to be hybrid. They'll have half the week at home. They'll come in for meetings or to use particular equipment. I do think that's going to become quite a heavy part of the way teams work in the future.
Yeah.
I tend to agree. It's going to be hybrid and continue to move towards hybrid. There's always going to be some interactions, especially at the enterprise level, where you have to sort of talk to marketing, product, and other people. But it's going to be hybrid. And if you look at it, complete cycle reps have always been hybrid, because we've been in and out of the office and so on. But I think with some of the tools that we've already spoken to and some of the things to come, it would be, I think, illogical and uneconomical to not be hybrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next key insight, which I think is super interesting. Okay. So key insight number 2, an overall average of 43% of baby boomer, Gen X, and millennial customers prefer a rep-free experience.
But if you change that to a Herb Tarlick experience, you'd be different, right?
So I want to break this down, because a rep-free experience can be multiple different things and might mean multiple different things to everybody. But why don't we start off? I would, hey Daniel, what when you hear rep-free experience, what does that mean to you?
It's an interesting one. I hear it as, prospects and customers not wanting a salesperson to be a part of the process. And I kind of get what Tibor was saying. You don't want a bad salesperson to be a part of it. But I have to admit, just on thinking about this as we've been speaking, there are a few purchases I'm making at the minute, and I am probably making quite a significant effort to not have any interaction with people within those businesses. Now, I think what makes the biggest impact to that is how much that product or service is. So the more expensive that product or service might be, then maybe the more open I might be to talking to someone. But generally, kind of following this theme, I'm digital buying. I'm doing comparisons. I'm looking at reviews. I'm going on multiple articles to compare different products and services. I'm doing what we've been talking about from a buyer's perspective and sourcing it myself. So I'm not really surprised at that statistic, but I do, agree with what Tibor was saying. What we probably don't want more than anything is to be sold to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if companies begin to use the tools already available and the tools that we see are coming, like those smart rooms and all that, I think that you can make the customer feel that they've had a rep-free experience, but the rep could have a great influence on their journey. Again, it's a question of how much knowledge they bring to it. You know, how the customer consumes it, whether it's directly from us or digitally, I think is second to the message. If the message is compelling, they'll come back. If it's not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Mukesh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't take the words rep free to be literal words that we need to follow. I kind of think that there is again a happy medium. And I'll say two things. In order to create empowered experiences in B2B, let's not call it rep free. Let's call it empowered, right? Let's empower our customers to make choices for themselves. In order to create those empowered experiences, your product has to lend itself to those experiences. If by nature of your product, it's an inherently complex product, you've not made it easy for your customers to try out your product, if there isn't an easy trial experience, then I think a rep-free experience is hard. I think an empowered experience is hard. So it depends on the nature of your product. Second, I think it depends on the attitude of your sellers. If your sellers don't understand the concept of empowerment, then you can't have this experience. If your sellers are trying to follow their sales process, this experience is not possible. So I'll tell you what I think. I'm going to give you an example. I am in the middle of a procurement cycle right now, Mikey. I won't name the company, but I will tell you that the lady who the sales rep from this company is an absolute rock star.
Yeah.
She absolutely understands what I need. I have been, as a buyer, I have been frustrating to work with because I have taken more than 6 months to decide which direction I'm going to go in. And she's been super patient. Now, let's not worry about how she hits her number and her quota. I'm sure she has creative ways of getting there. But I think of her approach to selling as almost a rep-free approach. She empowers me. She sends me the right data. She sends me the right digital signals, the right assets, and then she lets me make my own decisions. And so I think it's a little bit of product simplicity, and I think it's a little bit of sales rep attitudes that creates this kind of an empowered experience. So if we're thinking, well, rep-free basically means I'm not going to speak to any rep and I'm going to buy everything online. Well, you're not buying a jacket or a sweatshirt or shoes. You're buying enterprise software and you're going to need a point of view. So again, I'm kind of like, maybe this is the theme of the day for me. It's all about happy mediums, but I think empower your customers with a lot of online information, a lot of digital data, and then help them make good choices for themselves.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. I like that. That's great. Okay. We're going to move on to another poll here, and then we got another insight that we want to dive into. So I'm going to launch this one for you guys. In your sales organization, what is the primary channel for B2B sales right now? Just launch that. I'll give it a couple minutes. We're about 30 seconds or so to get some answers. But I think, the majority are definitely going to fall probably more geared towards the, face-to-face or relationship-based, since we are still, building out what that rep-free experience even looks like moving forward, right? So, but it would be cool to see if there are people in the audience right now where it is more geared towards the customer, kind of driving the whole buying experience. Okay, guys, we got almost everyone here. Okay, I'll end the poll. And bring this over here. So you can see, the majority do fall within relationship-based, face-to-face. No surprise there, but who knows? Maybe in 3 years it's the opposite, right?
A lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I think that's why it's such an interesting conversation that we're having, because it is something that is on the forefront and could be what is next. So awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing here. I'm gonna move on to our third key insight. And okay, so the third one being B2B organizations will implement digital sales rooms that blend the physical and digital sales experience. Okay, so I think this is a really cool concept. and what it could potentially bring to the sales experience and the sales process. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Mukesh, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that this is the future. I think this is where the world is heading towards, because one, I think doing everything physical, doing everything face to face comes at a cost. And you have to, at the end of the day, you have to worry about the cost of sale. And I'm sure there's a few executives, and maybe there's a couple of CROs on this bridge as well. And I'm sure they think about things like margin. So for me, physical selling is eventually going to be a luxury, right? And we're all going to have to think like that. I also think that the last 2.5 years have proven to us that we can sell just as effectively remotely, right? And maybe there are some things we wish we could do a little bit more. I personally wish I could do more closing meetings in person, right? And Tibor, I know you probably are aligned on that. Like, I think there's a type of meeting that should happen physically, and then there is another type of meeting that can be handled through a digital experience, right? But I think that most organizations have to think about, as you inspect your sales cycle and as you marry up your sales cycle with your customer expectation, where can you create an effective digital experience, and where is a physical experience needed, right? This is a call that organizations have to make. It's really dependent on what you're selling and how you're selling it. But I think this is the future. This is inevitable. And I think the benefit, Mikey, is going to be that the digital sales rooms are going to create convenience for your buyers. People who are buying for you will find this hybrid approach to be extremely convenient.
Yep.
And so I think, as we think about customer empowerment and customer convenience, I think this is going to be what customers expect from us. So if we start aligning, if we start adjusting our mindset to this, I think it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with you, where there is a space in where a meeting should be taking place, right? Whereas there's going to be multiple other aspects that, might not actually need a salesperson entirely, because they already have what they need. They just need some little integration or spare parts that they can do without talking to a sales rep, and do it all 100% on their own, ultimately creating a very enjoyable buying experience, right? So I love the point that you made there around that. So Daniel, Tibor, do you guys have any thoughts on this, and kind of what you think could come out of potential digital sales rooms moving forward?
Yeah, I mean,
Go for it.
I fully agree. Look, this is where it's all going, and I think the biggest part to this is two things. One, my initial point: we have to raise the standard, raise the bar. Our customers will want this; it provides a better experience to them. But this is just where technology is going, and if we can create an environment that will make the process easier for our buyers, we have to be buyer-led. We have to step up to the plate in the way that our buyers expect us to. And these digital sales rooms are going to bring together technology, AI, resources, just everything that we can kind of pull together that we have now. It's just going to be this process probably over the next 3 to 5 years where companies will adapt to this. But we are in super early stages, and in 5 years' time, kind of what Tibor was saying about sort of future statistics, it will be a whole different sales world.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'll add is, I think some of these things already exist. We talked about it in the pre-call. I think it's a really subtle way of tipping the experience towards the customer, as Mukesh was saying, because based on their personality, digital personality, as it were, digital sales rooms allow you to create sort of that mirror experience, the one that they're looking for. Whereas, in the old days, they were stuck with Tibor. It didn't matter, because, that was the sales guy that was coming to the meetings. But with this, you can tailor and create that empowerment, because if the experience is more to their liking, more to their ability to understand, they're going to explore things further, which allows you to introduce ideas and influence their thinking. And it's just, again, allows that empowerment, but still behind the scene, we are following a sales cycle of sorts, but it's not driven by us. It's driven by the customer, but we have the technology to keep up with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's great. Love it all. Love all you guys' insights. It's great getting multiple different pictures into one here. Okay, so final recommendations from Gartner through the report. So one, they recommend moving to a digital sales room, okay, by selecting, purchasing, and integrating technologies that support a digital physical sales customer journey. They think, based off of the research and the responses that we received, that is what is going to be the future moving forward. And second of all, to integrate all customer points of interaction. I think that is so important for all salespeople moving forward, having everything at your fingertips from all the different interactions from marketing throughout the whole revenue building process, even through chat on your website or any calls, any emails you have, all right there. It's just going to help you, like you, all three of you were saying, have the perception of how that customer is interacting with the business, ultimately making the selling process much easier and much more streamlined. And you just look a lot more organized as an organization as well. So I think those are two great recommendations. I think it is a bit ways out, the whole digital sales room. I think it's definitely going to be a part of the sales process. But as we spoke about through here, we definitely, we're at its infancy per se, right? So do you guys agree with these recommendations?
Yeah, we do. Sorry, Tibor first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot like saying you got to put one foot in front of the other if you're going to walk, because it's there, and all the slides have led to this. So I think the question now is not whether you do it, but how you do it in a way that allows you to continue to scale with it.
Yeah, I think Tibor is absolutely right. This is inevitable, Mikey. I will say one thing. Salespeople live in a CRM, no? They track all their activities and they track all their deals. We've all done that every Friday afternoon, update my activities in the CRM, right? But I think that there is a natural intersection between customer context and the physical stuff that we do in a sales cycle. And so the second recommendation is actually a very powerful one that you can actually start to do something about today. You can start to create better intersection between your marketing data and your sales data. You can take your customer journey and you can sprinkle it with information that you found during your sales cycles. Whether you're digital, whether you're physical, whether you're somewhere in between, this is the holy grail to contextual experience. If your customer has spent 45 minutes looking at product A page, but only spend 45 seconds looking at product B page, and I'm oversimplifying, obviously, you know what you're going to talk about, right, as a sales rep, because they spent 45 minutes on product A. And so that contextualization of the digital data and the physical information, that is something you can start doing today.
I think the one thing I would add to that, though, is I think most organizations miss a wealth of information and insight. They don't look at the customer experience. A lot of salespeople that I know don't look at the customer experience part of their CRM. And the best ideas come from customers who are happy with you, who are challenging you to expand your product, because those expansions are the things that people are looking for. And you plow that right back into your prospecting and your discovery, because it's coming straight from the horse's mouth. But I find that a lot of organizations don't encourage their salespeople to see comments from customers who've been on board for 2 years, because in a sense, their mentality is, who cares? I have to go find the next customer. But the best information about your product is from users who've been using it for a year or two.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Love that, guys. Well, we got one more quick thing to get through, and then we can all carry on. But really quick poll here for everybody, just to get a better understanding. Where is your organization on the path to implementing AI-powered context-driven CRMs, right? So as this starts to evolve, I think it's going to be a mandatory part of the process of the sales process moving forward over the next few years. So I'm going to launch this just to get a better idea of, where the audience is sitting. I think, again, a lot of the stuff we're talking about is at the infancy and kind of research pieces. So I would assume it's going to kind of fall within there, but if you're moving towards that route, running pilots and if almost implementing stuff, then that would be super cool, and you're probably ahead of most of other organizations there. So
brought into the mix, as I asked you during the pre-call, is the manager of AI going to get a quota?
Yeah, who knows? We'll have to see how it all forms up, right? Okay, guys, I'm just going to end the poll here, and as we can see, majority's in the research phase, but we do have some that are implementing solutions, deepening the scope and so on. So kudos to that. It's super cool. But I think the majority do definitely fall within that research phase. But I think there's a ton of really awesome stuff that AI is going to really help with this whole process moving forward, and so on. Okay, and one more piece that we want to touch on before I let everybody go here is how AI can help. Okay. There's many things that it can help with. Focus the right deals and leads at the right time, insights to determine your deal status, and then forecasting revenue. All very important things. Mukesh, what are your thoughts, and how do you think AI is going to help the whole sales process over the next little while as everything starts to evolve into that realm?
Yeah, and I hope I think I may something, if I may say something provocative, I hope my other panelists will forgive me. Unfortunately, AI is a buzzword, and AI, every company has a AI, something AI driven, right? And so I prefer to think of augmenting human capabilities rather than creating artificial intelligence. I'm a big fan of how can we help our sales professionals with a recommendation, with an insight, and let them make the right call during their sales cycle. So my favorite use case is if you have machine learning, and I saw that 70+% were doing research on AI-based CRMs and 20% were doing some sort of a pilot. My suggestion to you would be focus on very specific use cases that help augment your salespeople, that give them meaningful insights. And those insights should not be about closing a deal. They should be about making your customer's life a little bit easy. And if you can think about those things, I think you've really made good use of AI. So let's talk about for a minute, focusing on the right deals and the right leads. But what if you could also focus on a right next step? That your AI, based on all the different deals and all the different record that you have, maybe there's a machine learning algorithm that's saying, hey, in this type of a use case, in this type of a deal, this happened. So would you like to try this? Or, hey, you have this deal, but nobody who is a certain title and above has really engaged with you in a meaningful way. Or your digital sales room have only one type of content. What about other types of content that you could share with the customer? And those recommendations actually drive speed in the sales cycle, right? And we're talking about a rep-free experience. So obviously we're not gonna talk about like just the sales rep, but what if you could serve the right digital content in a digital room based on an AI recommendation? I think that's the winning formula. I know we're pressed for time, so I'll stop here. But I think the expectation from AI has to change, and we have to use AI for deeper insights, and then let our human friends make the right decisions for the customer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Daniel, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I use the really nerdy analogy. AI to salespeople is basically what Jarvis is to Iron Man. So, for anyone who's watched the Marvel films, Iron Man is the human, the salesperson. Jarvis is essentially the suit full of the technology that's helping him be the superhero. That's what all this technology does. It helps salespeople be the best version of themselves by utilizing all that data input, past, present, all that information, but converting it in a way that our human brains just simply can't do. So yeah, I am all for it, and it is going to be the future.
Totally. It can be scary sometimes, but also it is the future. Right?
So I don't think I could add much to what Daniel and Mikesh said, but if I had to bet on the three on the board, I would bet on number one. So I think that's where salespeople are struggling most. I think once they get in front of the customer, they find their feet.
Yeah.
So I would bet on number one.
Got it. Awesome, everyone. Well, that is everything we're going to touch on today. I'll give everybody back a few minutes on their time, but Mukesh, Daniel, Tibor, thank you three so much for joining us today to break down this info with all of us. I think it's super interesting, super cool, innovative things moving forward in the sales world. And I think it's a great time to even start the conversation. So really appreciate your guys' insights, taking the time out of your day. I know you're all very busy. So we really appreciate it and giving it back to the community. Everybody on the call, take out your phone and scan the QR code here. You'll get the full report from what we just spoke about through that QR code. However, you will also receive an email post-event where we will include the report there as well. So if you want to break that down even further, there's tons of information there that we didn't get to fully dive into. We could, if we had another hour, maybe we could have, but I know, again, we're all very busy. So thank you all so much for joining us today. If you have any questions that we couldn't get to, apologies, but go follow these guys on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. So again, thank you, Mukesh, Tibor, and Daniel for hopping on today. We loved it. I had a great time. I learned a ton. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I look forward to doing it again soon.